Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast of Jackson and Kyle. And I am joined here, as always, by the man who would never bench Jalen Hurts for Nate Sudfeld. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good week of football, but I do have to ask, I guess, to start us off, what the fuck did I just watch? What the fuck was that?
I think I know exactly what you just watched. Yes, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, that was just atrocious. That was just an atrocious game. It didn't even seem like Washington wanted to win it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But it ended the NFC East season almost. We still have Washington, but we're going into playoffs now. Feeling good about that.
Yes, going into playoffs. Kyle starting to show off strong with an F-bomb to not get us monetized. We love to see it. Let's just talk about. So we're going to talk about every game as we do, and we typically start off with the Sunday night game. Today will be no exception. Tonight will be no exception. So the Washington football team are going to the playoffs. This was a wild game, to say the least. I thought that as a Buccaneers fan, I'll take it from this perspective. I was hoping the Washington football team would lose. I feel like the Giants would have been a better matchup. Either way, it's a game we should win. But really, Doug Peterson made it difficult. And let's just start there. Did he throw this game?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say no, isn't it? Like, there's really no logical explanation for Nate Sudfeld coming in. You could say, well, you're giving the vet credit for working hard this season, but at the same time, I think the whole point of like when you're eliminated is to essentially evaluate your young players and see what you got. Nate Sudfeld's been there for 4 years now. He's played there for 4 seasons and has essentially done nothing the entire time. And as evidenced by that third throw, which was an awful interception, he's not a very good quarterback. You're seeing what you're getting out of Jalen Hurts and seeing what the future may look like. I think this opportunity should have been to evaluate Jalen Hurts. So it's kind of hard to say that, yeah, he wasn't trying to throw this game because it was just an awful call. I don't agree with it at all. If it was any reason to try and shake things up and try and win the game.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't throw the game, they were clearly not treating it like a preseason game. They weren't taking it very seriously, and I just feel like you saw those shots of like the offensive linemen at the bench who just all looked down. Like, it's hard. As the players, they want to win. This is their last game before they're going to spend a long offseason figuring out what's going to happen. And clearly, Jalen Hurts was the better option, and it was frustrating to see them not have him out there. And do they win this game? I don't know. But at the very least, they weren't really too concerned with winning this game. Doug Peterson wasn't. And I don't know. It was frustrating to see.
Yeah, it was. And listen, Hurts didn't play his best game. He wasn't very good at a lot of times during this. They were missing a ton of guys, the Eagles. The defensive line for the football team was all over them. And I'm sure that played a part in him messing up. And I think you saw some of the mistakes that you're worried about Jalen Hurts coming out of college, which is the timing and accuracy issues. Because one of the things I tweeted, he had a ball to Jalen Reagor early in the first half that I think was like a 20, 25-yard pass downfield. And the ball was just late. The ball was behind him, and the guy in the secondary ended up breaking it up because it was behind him and late. And that's just things that when he's at Oklahoma and Alabama in college football, he can get away with. But when he's in the NFL, he's not going to be able to get away with. So I think there's things that he could have cleaned up, and I think there's things obviously he has to work on. But he's not a finished product. Nobody expected him to be a finished product. And yeah, I just thought it was a very weird call. I still thought he gave the team the best chance to win the football game, especially because he's the only one who scored in this game. So just completely makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that Hurts. He had his bad moments. He also had some good moments there as well. And yeah, very inconsistent. And I think it doesn't help things that Nate Sudfeld had a Nathan Peterman-esque performance when he entered the game. I mean, it did not go too well.
No, it did not. He was 5 of 12, 32 yards in interception, and honestly, it felt worse than that somehow. I mean, listen, I'm with you though. I think that I thought it would have been interesting if Washington won this game because I think Washington presents more challenges to Tampa Bay. I think their front four can be a menace. We talked a lot about Hurts in this one, but obviously Chase Young on the other side. It's been impressive because a lot of rookies hit the rookie wall by like week 13, week 14. He's played his best football the last 3 weeks rather than hitting any sort of wall. He's been outstanding the last few weeks, and I just felt like every time like I looked up, he was in the backfield in this game. His stats aren't jaw-dropping, but he was still very good, I thought. And, yeah, I mean, I think Washington has a better chance to win to the Giants because of that defensive line and because Alex Smith isn't Daniel Jones. So I do think it makes a more interesting game, but at the same time, like, Washington did not play a great game, and it did not make me excited for seeing them in the postseason.
Yeah, this is not. I mean, we've seen Washington play better football than this. This was not their best game. Also, we got to give a shout out to Montez Sweat, who's really kind of feel like been the unsung hero for this defense for a lot of it. He's been incredible. Second year player that's really taken a jump. He showed flashes his rookie year as well. So they have an incredible defensive line. Their defense as a whole had another good game. I mean, we can sit here and talk about how bad Sudfeld was all we want, but they did also force those turnovers. They did things to help themselves out. So this is at the end of the day, this feels like they honestly do feel like a playoff team in a lot of ways, the Washington football team, despite being 7-9. I think they're a much better team than when they started. And out of the four NFC East teams, the commentators, Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels kept saying, like, imagine being a Giants fan or imagine being a Giants player. And it's just kind of like, well, the Giants won 6 games this year. Like at the end of the day, you can't get too mad about this. So win another game. Washington, say what you want about, the Dolphins won 3 more games and won't be making the playoffs, but they did earn it at the end of the day, despite sort of a weird ending.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel bad for any NFC East team. And you're never going to convince me to feel bad for an NFC East team this year. In fact, I feel more bad for everybody else rather than NFC East teams because we still have to watch an NFC East team rather than the Miami Dolphins next week or something like that. So, at the end of the day, this Washington thing is actually a pretty great story. You look at everything, having to overcome this Haskins thing, Ron Rivera battling cancer this entire season and in the offseason. Good guy Daniel Snyder being able to make the playoffs. Just
that's where it loses. It's like so many good, like Alex Smith, like all this, and then they were called the Redskins up until this year, so maybe not the best story. Also, comment in the chat, Doug P wasn't tanking. Stop hating weirdos. So there you go. We got. Okay, well, thank you for your money. For you can call us weirdos all you want if you're gonna pay us. That's the thing we'll take. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is that I think this is a lesson for the NFL. Don't put a team that's already out of the playoffs on Sunday Night Football Week 17 because you might not get the result you want. Whereas if this was Rams Cardinals, that wasn't necessarily a fantastic game, but both teams were at least trying to win.
Yeah, no, I agree. But at the same time, I thought it was compelling to see up until that fourth quarter. I'll be honest, I had this on split screen, and then once I saw Sudfeld throw a pick, I diverted a lot of attention to Steph Curry scoring 62 points because I felt like I saw everything I needed to see out of Sudfeld.
Okay, well, for our Steph Curry podcast, we can talk about that more later. I think that's it for this thing. The Washington football team will play in the postseason. Cool, fun to see, and primetime, of course, because it's NFC. Here's what I want to do next for the next part of the show. I want to talk about just the AFC team, the 5 teams that were 10-5 in the AFC. We're going to talk about all 5 of those games, and then we'll get on to the NFC. So that's how I want to do this. And the first game I think we have to talk about, the Cleveland Browns are in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, not another team that looked like at times they didn't want to make the postseason as well. The Browns struggled through this one. Everyone was talking. Listen, that they did a good job for a lot of the game of taking advantage of the Pittsburgh second teamers. They kind of stalled a little bit in this one, but at the same time, I thought they did a pretty good job overall. They got to hope Denzel Ward's back because what's his name? Robert Jackson he ain't it, man. He just really isn't, because if Mason Rudolph's torching you, you're not going to be able to play in the playoffs. I'm sorry. So they got to hope Denzel Ward's back. I think that's going to be huge. But at the end of the day, this team, they ran for 6.2 yards per carry. I thought they did a pretty good job overall, 11 yards of reception. They just kind of stagnated and let Pittsburgh back in this one. And, it almost bit them in the butt. But at the end of the day, they got the win. And I think for Cleveland, that's all that matters at the end of the day, because that's all the fans wanted was win. And if you said they were winning by 2 points after a failed 2-point conversion, they're going to be like, oh, sure, great, I'll take it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the reality is for Cleveland, it's like you can sit here and talk about, well, next week they're going to have to play the starters. That looks like a bad situation. They're in the playoffs, and it's been since 2002 it's been forever since they've been here. So for them to get here, and if they lose next week and get blown out 45-0, this is a good season. This is a great stepping stone. You have a first-year head coach. You usually don't make the playoffs with first-year head coaches. They have a lot to improve upon. Basically, their entire defense needs to be improved upon, with the exception of a few pieces. And they've had injuries as well. That should be mentioned. But this is not a disaster by any means for Cleveland if they lose next week. In fact, it's the opposite. And you look at the ending of that game. That was so Cleveland Browns. The way it was all going, where Mason Rudolph, who I actually thought had a pretty decent game, he's Mason Rudolph, so we expect nothing much, but he actually played pretty well. And everything was going wrong. They give up that touchdown. They do get the stop on the 2-point conversion. And then there was that onside kick nearly missed, but they get it. Baker Mayfield ends up designed quarterback run for the first down on third down. They don't have to give it back. This Pittsburgh, the old Cleveland Browns lose this football game.
Yeah, no, they definitely find a way to lose this. So getting that win's just the most important thing. And Stefanski did what he had to do. He came in and he righted the ship. He figured things out on offense and simplified the game plan for Baker Mayfield. It produced 11 wins in their postseason at the end of the day, no matter who they beat. And, these teams are going to run it back in a week, and we'll see what happens. I think the idea that the Steelers are just now going to steamroll the Browns is a little overblown. Like, what have we exactly seen from the Steelers offense to the last 3 or 4 weeks that they're just going to beat this team by 20?
Well, I mean, I think it's what we've seen from the Browns defense the past couple of weeks that might make you think that way.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if Denzel Ward's back, I got, a little more hope in Cleveland. I'm still going to pick Pittsburgh, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout if he plays. But yeah, I do think that's going to be the most important thing for the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, also worth mentioning, it wasn't the entire Pittsburgh Steelers backups. You can only bench so many people. Like, a lot of starters were still in there, so
all the receivers are still in there.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and we'll talk about that more on our preview show on Wednesday at 9:00. Yeah, so Cleveland Browns into playoffs. Any final thoughts for this one?
No, I think we just about covered it. I think we just about covered it. Looking forward to seeing the Browns finally play a postseason game, however long it lasts. Yeah,
very cool to see. Let's move on. A team that will not be making the playoffs, the Miami Dolphins. Out of the 5 teams, this is the one that missed it. I didn't think it was an awful day from Tua, the way some people are saying. I thought that it was definitely a slow start. And then when he tried his best Ryan Fitzpatrick impersonation, that's when things really just completely went out of control. Also, giving up 56 points. I know that I know part of it was because of the turnovers and everything. There was a pick 6. But also for Miami, usually their defense and special teams is the strength. It wasn't in this game. Josh Allen lit them up in the first half. They had gave up 28 points in the first half and kind of put them behind the 8 ball. This was just not the game Miami wanted, and in a game that they needed they turned out they needed to make the playoffs. They laid an egg here.
Yeah, I mean, look, they got the pick early. They got the field goal, but it really, I didn't think Tua was awful, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to be successful when in a 10-minute stretch you're giving up 21 points. They went down quickly, and at that point, it kind of just seemed over. And, a lot of that went to the punt return also. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think this game's on Tua whatsoever, because I don't think the defense played as well as it has all year, despite getting that early interception. There was a lot of things that I don't think Miami did as well as they have. And I don't think any of this is Tua's fault. Just, tough break for them. And I do think that at the end of the day, Dolphins fans still have to feel really good about this season.
Well, you do it, you do and you don't, because there's a lot great about it. And for one thing, you're getting the number 3 overall pick. The issue really is though with the quarterback position, and their offense around Tua isn't great, but there is this big question mark now around Tua, and there is a debate: do you get rid of Tua? Do you try to move on for him, or do you just say let's not panic? Because they're in a weird situation where they have this number 3 overall pick. If they get the quarterback position, lock solid, and they can get some improvements on offense, this could be a fantastic team, and this could be a Super Bowl team. And it's a tough decision, and it's one I'm glad I don't have to make.
Yeah, I had a goofy tweet earlier that I was like 100% joking about, but now I feel like it's like a 95% joking. You want a hypothetical trade?
Sure.
The Texans get their first and second round picks back, plus Tua for Deshaun Watson. Who would say no?
The Texans.
The Texans get their first and second round picks back from Miami.
Yeah,
and Tua.
I heard the trade.
You think so?
Yeah. Why would you Texans? Deshaun Watson's amazing.
Yeah. But
why would you do that?
Are you going to start winning in the next 5 years with that roster?
Sure, because you have Deshaun Watson, and you only have you're out of draft picks for this year, but then you're fine in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I just think that losing a first and second round pick for a year is more important.
I strongly disagree. I keep the
Yeah.
I keep
top
5 quarterback.
Mainly joking, but I think it's actually funny to think about now.
You just said 95%. Or you said 95% joking or serious?
Joking.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah, I'm still mostly joking about it, but I mean, I still think the people saying Tua they should replace Tua now is ridiculous. If they get a guy, they can still get a guy like Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith, whoever you like more. You could still get another guy at 18 to add to this offense, and Tua's still going to develop. He didn't have any training camp because he was battling an injury for most of training camp anyways, and then came into the middle of the season. I think he's going to be fine. I think everyone's kind of overreacting to this because he's not Justin Herbert. I think, this is fine for a rookie. I thought he had a solid year. I thought he had some good games, and I thought he had some bad games. If they develop around him, I think he's going to be more than fine as an NFL player.
Yeah, it's just such the struggle of drafting a quarterback is sometimes you have to give them 3 years until they Josh Allen and become great. Sometimes you give them 5 years and they Marcus Mariota and never are able to turn the corner. So it's such a difficult decision. It'll be interesting to see what they do. They're in a weird spot and they're not going to the playoffs. And on the flip side, the Buffalo Bills are really good at football, and they'll be playing the Indianapolis Colts next week. This is a team that no one wants to play in the playoffs. They are red hot right now.
Yeah, playing their best football at the right time. Some guy named Antonio Williams all of a sudden is like their starting running back. He had a really good game in this one. But hey, I mean, yeah, they're playing their best football at the right time, like you said, and they're dangerous. They look like a legit Super Bowl contender, and I think they can compete with Kansas City.
Yeah, no, they're really good. All right, let's move on now. Let's talk about another team that's red hot, Baltimore Ravens. I mean, this team just keeps steamrolling these teams. I know it hasn't been the most difficult schedule, but I feel like no team beats up on bad teams more than Baltimore. And once again, this is just another incredible day by them. And I guess it's Cincinnati, but Cincinnati has shown to be scrappy, and a mediocre team really just doesn't feel like they don't stand a chance against Baltimore unless they're New England.
Yeah, I mean, look, 404 yards rushing is laughable. That's almost insane. I think the biggest thing that happened, along with changing up some of their stuff schematically on offense, I think the biggest thing that happened is they finally just gave J.K. Dobbins the ball, because they were trying to do this three-headed horse at running back. I know Gus Edwards had 12 carries today, but this is Dobbins' backfield now alongside Lamar, and it makes the most sense. He's the most explosive player back there. And when you don't have as much explosiveness in the passing game, you really need it in the running game. I know they have it with Lamar. It makes a ton of sense with Dobbins as well. And they're dangerous. This team's playing its best football as well at the right time. And yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a 3-team race in the AFC, and one of them is Baltimore. I got Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City as my 3 favorites out of the AFC right now with the way they're playing.
Yeah, and for Baltimore, This weekend they get a chance at revenge. Going to play in Tennessee to play the Titans, the team that ended their incredible season last year. So that's going to be in Tennessee's beat them again this season. So it kind of seems like it's an awful matchup for them. But if you're a Ravens fan, this is almost what you want. Give yourself a chance to beat sort of the team that keeps beating you.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun matchup because Baltimore's run defense still hasn't played very well. I think they had, let's see here, I had it right here, 7.7 yards per carry allowed. So still not great performance from their run defense, which is something that's kind of been the theme all year with them. And Derrick Henry's the kind of guy who can change games, as we saw in that Tennessee game, and we'll talk about. So which running game I think is going to come out on top? This could be another game where it's like, who gets the early advantage? Because I feel like if Tennessee gets the early advantage again like last time, it might be a little hard for Baltimore to come back in that one with their game plan and with Henry controlling the clock. So it's going to be a fascinating matchup. I can't wait for the rematch.
You know who one of the biggest losers of this game is? The Houston Texans. How did you let Brandon Allen look like a superstar? In this game, he goes 6 for 21, 48 yards, and no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This is Texans. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, I have talked about the Texans' pass defense all year, and I'm going to talk about it again today. Just completely atrocious. These guys, none of them should be in the league next year, honestly. But, Brandon Allen is clearly not an NFL quarterback, just like the Texans secondary is clearly not an NFL secondary. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens shut him down. This pass defense is no joke. The secondary, even without Earl Thomas all season, has proven it's still no joke. It's just, can they shore up the running game enough?
Yes, we will talk again more about the upcoming preview on our preview show. Again, not too much to talk about there. Ravens better than the Bengals. We expected them to win. They win. The Colts, we expected them to beat the Jaguars. They did, but it was a bit shaky there at a certain point. Kind of took a bit for the Colts to really pull away. It looked like for a second we could see Phillip Rivers reversing it away for a bit, but they held on, and Jonathan Taylor ended up with 253 yards. That helps as they're able to defeat the lowly 1-15 Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, it's like I had this game on my TV, obviously with playoff implications. I saw Jonathan Taylor just start going crazy, and it was 17-0, and I'm like, okay, it's good. We're good here. And then all of a sudden I look back up and it's 20-14, and it's like Mike Glennon is like competing and outplaying Phillip Rivers, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? It seems like they kind of just fell asleep and Phillip Rivers stopped playing well. He didn't have a great game at all, but when you have Jonathan Taylor playing that well, when this Colts running back group is like working, it's really working because Taylor's just rough in the middle. Hines can do a lot on the outside, and he's really explosive. This offense isn't great, but at the same time, those two can really make a lot of things happen.
Yeah, Hines had 50 receiving yards as well, so that's true. The backfield is good. And again, we've talked about this Colts offense seemingly just goes away at times. That is a bit of a concern, especially when you're playing Buffalo, a team that you have to score to beat. But again, you're into playoffs. There was the fear of going 11-5 and missing the playoffs. If Miami won, they wouldn't be in it. So it's better to have some issues going into the playoffs than to just be out of the playoffs in general and look great. So they got that going for them.
Yeah. I mean, no, you're right. And this was, 2 years after the Andrew Luck thing. I think this is, everyone's taking this as a massive success. This is best case scenario that they're in the playoffs, even if Phillip Rivers isn't the long-term answer. Getting to that position, I think, means everything to them. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like this was named the Saturday afternoon game, I believe, too, right? Like, I don't think a lot of people are going to give the Colts a shot in that one.
Right, yeah, this is that one. And also, there's a couple moments with DeForest Buckner had a pair of sacks in this one. Darius Leonard had a sack as well. And there's a play when Leonard, I forget what the play was, but he had this really good play. And I was just like, you know what? I want him in the playoffs. Like, there's just a couple, there's guys on this team that I'm like, they might not be the best team, but they do have a good defense. It might not be elite, but it's really good. and their offense does enough. And this is a team that I want to see what they're able to do in the postseason, even if it ends up just getting blown out by Buffalo. They've earned their shot, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Buckner, one of the most underrated players in the league. He's been part two of the top defenses the last 2 years on two different teams. And, one of the things that I think is incredible is I attribute a lot of turnover and turnover differential and turnover margin stuff to luck. I do think you do have to have some sort of luck to create turnovers or get turnovers sometimes. But at the same time, the way this Colts team, not only creates turnovers, but also capitalizes on them. You just saw, I think there was a fumble early in the game. And all of a sudden, the second the ball hit the ground, there's 7 Colts around the football. The way the team can just anticipate turnovers and make plays off of them is pretty fantastic. Them and the Dolphins are the same way with this all year. And, that's the recipe for beating the Bills is that, they can create a few turnovers with this defense and make some plays on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and also only one accepted penalty against them, too. That's going to get it done. Congratulations to the Colts. They're in the tournament. We'll see what they do when they get there. The Jaguars, I mean, this was kind of a whatever game. Some of your receivers popped, and you have Trevor Lawrence next year, so that's really all that matters.
Yeah, you have Trevor Lawrence. That's the most important thing. It's been fun watching Mike Glennon and his long neck play, but that's going to be the end of that, and James Robinson didn't play, so not much to say on Jacksonville's side.
Yes, Mike Glennon now, the rare player who has been a starting quarterback on multiple teams that end up getting the first overall pick. He also did that with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville, they have some pieces here that they can play with Lawrence on offense. I think the offensive line needs to get better, but with Shenault at receiver, with Chark at receiver, with Robinson in the backfield, there's some pieces here to work with going forward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do down the stretch. I'm sure we'll talk about that plenty in the offseason. Okay, so we got one more AFC game, plowing through these. This was just absolute chaos. It was a lot of fun to watch, I thought. This is exactly how we expected a game like these two to go. Derrick Henry, 250 rushing yards, which puts him over 2,000 for the season. Absolutely incredible season. But the year and a half stretch he is on, rivals maybe any back in the NFL. I mean, it's been incredible. I mean, in NFL history, not just right now. Incredible. On the flip side, we have Deshaun Watson doing whatever he can to get his team back in it. The Titans defense, not great, but but their offense is great. In fact, it's incredible. And they were able to win a game where they gave up 38 points.
Yeah. Look, the numbers for the Titans offense in the passing game don't look awesome, but at the same time, they were awesome. That play to A.J. Brown, it was a perfect throw from Tannehill. So I want to give him complete credit for that pass. But at the same time, this is what I've been saying all year. What are the Texans doing? Why is A.J. Brown beating a corner and a safety upfield when that's their only option is to throw the 40-yard pass? There's literally nothing else that they can do but to get into field goal range besides that. Why is he beating 2 guys down the field? This Texans defense just kills me week in and week out with the way they play. They have guys trying to arm tackle Derrick Henry and just getting beat on every play. They got guys who are just getting beat upfield. Corey Davis, who's had a fantastic year, by the way, had 2 or 3 just egregious drops that I felt like were a good 15, 20 yards for him, and he just dropped the ball. And he was wide open on all of them. This Texans defense needs so many new pieces. That's the problem I have with trading draft picks is that they need 10 new players on this defense, I feel like.
Well, I mean, they need a lot. And yeah, what a final play to me was just as much coaching as it was skill. If they're playing quarters coverage, so cover 4, basically 4 players stay deep. And, the Tennessee has a good game plan against it where they have one receiver run underneath. It gets the safety to bite in, and then they have another receiver, A.J. Brown, go over the top. But why are you biting in? Just stay over the top. Don't get beat deep like that. So there absolutely is coaching. There's a lot that needs to go right for the Texans, and it is true. If they don't have Deshaun Watson, this is a team that looks way worse than they do. Also, for Tennessee, though, I have to say this. We've killed Tennessee special teams. How do you not notice that A.J. McCarron is on the field on a punt? How did you miss that?
I don't know. Yeah, they've continued to be bad. Yeah, I mean, they haven't played some great football at points, you know. I give a
Mhm.
lot of credit to Vrabel for situational stuff, but at the same time, some of the management of a lot of these special teams and defensive stuff has not worked out the way they wanted to. They haven't been very good this year at points. So I don't know. I think this is a good team, but are they going to be able to get it done without having that team, with only having one phase of football being really good and two bad phases of football?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, but it really is kind of the idea. But at the same time, I think in the NFL today, good offense beats bad defense, or good offense beats good defense. I mean, and sometimes if that can work, although I don't, Baltimore's a really good team too. It's going to be tough. The AFC is a gauntlet, but we'll see. Again, preview it on the Wednesday show. That's it. Unless you got any final thoughts for this one.
Free Deshaun Watson. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on. Let's talk about this one. So we got a couple of quarterbacks we didn't expect to see playing this season. I thought Wolford had a horrendous first quarter for about first like 13
Yeah.
minutes or so. He did turn it around and actually played pretty good football after that point. But there was that, and I felt like his scrambling ability and his ability to run was a difference. Cam Akers, how about this for a stat line? 21 carries for 34 yards, 1.6 yards per carry. That's not great when you're getting 21 carries. But again, they got the win. This is very much a defensive win. Everyone is killing the Cardinals, but one of the things I talk about is every single time a team plays the Rams, it seems like the next morning, Monday morning, everyone's criticizing the opposing offense that plays the Rams. This Rams defense is really good. So if they need Goff back if they're going to win a playoff game, but they absolutely they are a really good defense and they're a good team, even if this wasn't necessarily perfect from them.
Yeah, it was it was looking bad there for a stretch, and it's like the Rams are going to miss the playoffs because Goff wasn't in the game. Was a little funny, but at the same time, like, yeah, he ended up turning around and making some good throws there at the end. Like you said, Cam Akers also lost a fumble too, so that just adds insult to injury. But yeah, I mean, these Ram stats, you look at 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 6 pass deflections, 5 quarterback hits, and a defensive touchdown. This defense is awesome. It's fast, it's big, it makes plays in the middle, it makes plays on the outside. There's everything that this team does really well. Just an incredible performance from them. And I know that Kyler Murray was kind of banged up, and that also played a part to it because he couldn't really move at the end of the game. But at the same time, you play who's in front of you, and they did a really good job of that.
Yeah, the only game this season that the Rams have given up more than 28 points was against Buffalo. So in today's NFL, that's not easy to do. They've done a great job. They're playing Seattle in Wild Card Weekend, so that didn't go too well last time. They've split that series, so that'll be interesting to see. They need Goff back as well, clearly. But yeah, there's a lot to like about this football team. Also, one slight thing, I keep thinking Van Jefferson is Brandon Cooks. They both he wears 12. He's sort of a shorter guy. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, Brandon Cooks could play. Oh, wait, that's not he got traded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not quite the same skill set, I think, but at the same time, I could see it.
It's mostly, I don't know.
Also, I got to give props to a couple guys, Jalen Ramsey mainly. This was by far, I thought, DeAndre Hopkins' worst game. He actually had a lower output game earlier in the season, but he also had 10 targets and only brought in 4 of them. I thought he was really good in this one. And, that was the thing is, like, if Hopkins goes nuts, anything's possible for the Cardinals. And they were able to limit that and took him out of this game.
Yeah, only 35 yards for Hopkins. That's another thing that's not going to get it done. And I guess we should talk about this Cardinals team, though. Twitter is ready to fire Cliff Kingsbury right now.
I mean, what does he prove that he should be a head coach in the NFL?
Well, yeah, I mean, he hasn't. That's a fair point. I think it's again, it's another one of those weird situations where this is kind of the Cardinals team that we expected this season to be. They were an inconsistent team. Neither one of us had them making the playoffs. 8-8 felt about right, I think, preseason, but there was a lot higher expectations for them. Part of me wants to see what could happen with Kingsbury if they get sort of the receiving weapons around DeAndre Hopkins because Dan Arnold was the leading receiver for the Cardinals this game. I would like to see them Fitzgerald just isn't what he once was. He might be retired by the time this is done also. So part of me would like to see if they could bring in some other weapons, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, you can totally get rid of him and justify it, and you're not going to sweat about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I would say is like if they're going to replace him, who are you getting that you think is better? I think that's the only thing I would ask is, are you getting someone that you can guarantee is better? Because I look at the coaching candidates, I don't think like a guy like Bill Cowher makes a ton of sense for having not coached for a while. I don't think a guy like Pat Fitzgerald makes a ton of sense going for another college coach after this. So I think that'd be my one argument on keeping Cliff Kingsbury is like, who are you getting that's going to be better right away? Maybe you just roll the dice that you give him one more year with this team and maybe it works some things out. But at the same time, for a guy who's an offensive guru, I felt like this offense should have been better all year, and it just wasn't at times.
Yeah, Jeff Fisher's available.
Oh yeah, Hugh Jackson too, right?
John Fox. Yeah, there's a lot of options, I think. No, I mean this is definitely, it was not a good offensive showing for Arizona, and it's, I mean, in fairness, Kyler missed most of this game. It's like that has to be mentioned as well. That's part of the only 7 points, but they got to do better. You just got to do better in this.
Yeah. It was a bummer not seeing Kyler fully healthy in this one, especially getting out early in that. But at the same time, I don't really know if he was going to be good enough because this Rams defense, like you said, is just a menace.
Yeah. So we'll, I see some people in the chat saying Eric Bieniemy would be a good choice, but I mean, obviously,
yeah. So does like 10 other teams want Eric Bieniemy. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of my point. If you can get him, sure, but I don't think they're going to move on from him. I think they're going to keep him because I think that had Arizona won this game, they're definitely keeping him. And typically, you want to make these decisions like in the next couple of days. I don't think you're going to make that decision right now. I think Kingsbury will stay. And part of it too is you got to blame the players at a certain point too. Like so many times these plays are just not working because of execution as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. Was Chess Guru here says Brian Dabble. I'd like that higher. I think that'd be a good one. But at the same time, I think we kind of jump the gun on firing some coaches sometimes. But I would just run it back one more year, I guess, if I were in charge, which I'm clearly not. But at the same time, I completely understand it because there are times, there are times where it didn't look great for Cliff Kingsbury, especially with decision making and late game situations.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, there's enough reason to get rid of him, but also, the talent isn't exactly perfect either. Let's move on. Let's talk about the team that will make the playoffs, along with the team that has the 1 seed. The Bears are good. I was right all along.
Oh, geez. Aaron Rodgers official locked up the MVP now, right?
Oh, yeah. 48 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 5. I mean, he's, especially with Mahomes not playing week 17, Rodgers has it at this point.
Yeah, and, I got to give a lot of credit to this offensive line here. Bakhtiari is out. I think they gave up 1 sack. That's really awesome. And although the running game wasn't as effective as it normally is, it didn't really have to be because, Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns and only 5 incompletions.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought the Packers offense was as good as ever. They looked the part. And, you live with Mitch Trubisky and you die with Mitch Trubisky, obviously. I don't think this game was all on him. I thought he had moments where he looked fine. But at the same time, bad interception at the worst time. And, he's not Aaron Rodgers, so that much is true.
Yeah, that is very. I don't think you'll get too much pushback. I think Mitchell Trubisky's mom would agree he's not Aaron Rodgers. And weird. It was just a weird game. The Packers put up 35 points. They ran 44 offensive plays.
Listen, I actually was talking about this. I think that Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what the city of Chicago did to Aaron Rodgers, but he hates them. It's honestly, I'm fully convinced because it's Aaron Rodgers that he just took 3 possessions off just so he could rip the hearts out of Bears fans one more time and beat them again. And, at least Bears fans can take solace. I tweeted this. I thought it was good. At least Bears fans can take solace in that they're not going to be good enough to lose to Aaron Rodgers again. So
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I think we need a new segment on this show where you just read off your best tweets of the week.
I should. I'm hilarious. So
yes, everyone follow Kyle on Twitter. Yeah, and follow on the sideline on Twitter. It's in the description. But yeah, for Chicago, listen, Green Bay's awesome. We all know it. And the one thing I'll add about Green Bay is the way that they've been able to move their offensive linemen around, and Ellington Jenkins, the way he can play every position, it's really incredible. Just the depth they have on their offensive line. But moving on to Chicago, so this was obviously not great. You get blown out. It wasn't really a blowout. I mean, it was close at a certain point in the fourth quarter, but then Green Bay really ran away with it. You got the New Orleans Saints next week. People keep saying, well, now the Chicago Bears are going to keep, Trubisky and keep Matt Nagy, but I just don't see that happening. Although slight spin zone, Matt Nagy, 3 years in 3 years as the head coach for the Bears, no losing seasons, 2 playoff appearances.
Oh God, yeah.
That's a definition of, I feel like, a cherry pick stat where you don't look at the reason that's totally because he inherited an amazing defense.
Yeah. No, I mean, they played the Saints earlier in this year, and it was a little more competitive a game. Nick Foles kept them in it in that one, and it went to overtime. Yeah. So maybe they find some of that magic. The defense shows up in that one, and they're able to create some things. They really struggled with Kamara in that last game, so I think that's going to be a problem for them again, obviously, because Kamara is still there, hopefully. So
we'll see.
Yeah,
he has the COVID thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, nothing's impossible. I'm not obviously going to bet on the Bears, but hey, you did exactly. I said it all year. I said it at the end of the season, even though I thought Chicago was completely fraudulent. I was like, stacking 5 wins at the beginning of the season really helps, and it helped in the very end because they made the playoffs. So good on the Bears. The Packers, I think this defense is playing really good football right now. If they run into an elite running game in the playoffs, we'll see. But at the same time, I think this secondary is playing really good and making plays. Yeah,
there's the Moochie Studio in the chat saying Jackson going heavy on that Bud Light. I am. Look at how far I'm up to here. I've had a fifth of a Bud Light. Relax, Moochie. Yeah, I love you. One more thing, Cordell Patterson is. I think I love him.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to say. I'm ready to say the L word of Cordell Patterson.
I mean, he's certainly fun to watch. He's been
just that kickoff of him, going out of bounds, getting it at the wall. He's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything to add. He's probably the best kick returner ever. So I still think Dante Hall's better overall, but he's there. He's in the conversation.
Yes. Also, does JKS draw comments from the chat? No, we do not. Okay, let's move on and let's talk. I think we're good with this one. Let's talk about another. We'll talk about this one. It had playoff implications at the time, ended up not mattering. The Giants defeat the Dallas Cowboys, and we got absolute chaos in the final basically play of this game.
Yeah, that fumble was weird.
Yes, fantastic. It was very NFC. This weekend was very NFC East football.
Yeah. What was greater in New York sports lore, do you think? Was it the butt fumble or the butt fumble recovery?
Well, I think the butt fumble was more infamous than good. So I think that the butt fumble recovery. Yeah, there was that weird thing where it's like, okay, Wayne Gallman clearly doesn't have it, and then they all of a sudden showed an angle of like somehow he just has it perfectly in his arms. Like, how did that happen? He was sitting on it like a bird sitting on an egg, and now all of a sudden he has the football.
Yeah. Those fumble scrums are definitely if you want to just put me in hell, it's in those fumble scrums. This is a reason why I played defensive back in high school, so I didn't have to be involved in that crap because I'm not diving in the midst of that and just being suffocated by a big offensive lineman trying to recover a ball. That sounds miserable, by the way. End rant there, but yeah, just a very weird situation that he ended up with that football. It looked like the Cowboys somehow were going to get another chance at it after throwing a pick in the end zone. I do have to say one thing. I have to question my boy here. I've been high on CeeDee Lamb all year. I thought he's had a fantastic season. The drops are killer though, man. Just
Yeah.
absolutely killer. He had that drop on, I think it was second and goal that, it probably, with the space he had, he probably gets down to the 4 or 3 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And the next play, they have to have a desperation play, and Dalton throws a pick. Just a killer drop there.
Well, that whole sequence was, and just to set it up for people that maybe didn't watch the ending, they have first and goal at around, I think the like 5 yard line. There was a missed blitz pickup that results in a sack. So that's second and goal. Then they have a good pick play designed to get CeeDee Lamb open. He drops it. So now it's third and goal. And then Andy Dalton decides that he just going to, I don't know, YOLO and just throws one up in the end zone, which was just not a great throw, which results in the interception. That was just a brutal sequence.
Yeah. The Cowboys season in a nutshell, I guess. I'm glad this team didn't make the playoffs. If this team made it, that would have been insufferable.
Yeah.
Having to hear about it. So, not that I hate any team really, but just I'm glad they didn't make it at this point because I didn't want to see Andy Dalton in the postseason. And after all this, with the whole Mike McCarthy debacle, I thought he was terrible in this one too, by the way. Just a train wreck of a coaching job. Didn't challenge what looked like a drop. A lot of things I didn't agree with McCarthy.
Yeah, and I talk about the blitz pickup. I'll bring it up again. Like those things happened all year. It's like they have not gotten better at that stuff. Special teams was great kicking in this one. Zerline went 4 for 4, had a 57-yarder in this one. You also had Graham Gano hitting a 50-yarder as well. So good kicking. If you watch football for the kicking, what the hell are you doing? But also, this is the game for you.
The one guy who watches football for the kicking. There you go.
Yeah. I think that's Pat McAfee. I think that's who does that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have on this game. Daniel Jones was very average again, although he made some nice throws. I'll give him some credit. So he made some nice plays.
Incredibly complimentary for you.
Yeah.
He was average? Man, yeah. Kyle.
All right. I know I'm being too nice right now, aren't I?
Yeah. This game we'd probably talk about more if it actually ended up mattering. But yeah, both teams, we'll see what they do next year. I think the Giants are moving in the right direction. Cowboys, not so much, I think. But we'll see. They've got to get Prescott. Let's talk about my team. This was a very up and down game as a Buccaneers fan. So there's this written out of a tragedy moment where Mike Evans, it's talked about this record of getting 1,000 yards for every season for his first 7 seasons in the league. It's widely talked about. He gets it. There's a standing ovation in the socially distanced crowd in Tampa Bay. The very next play, he's open for a touchdown, but his leg hyperextends on the grass. He gets injured. He drops the ball because he's hurt and ends up leaving the game. It's still unclear how bad it is. It appears it's not an ACL or anything like that. It's just a hyperextension of a knee. I'm not a doctor. They said there's a chance he could play next week, which it would just be heartbreaking if he spends all this time in Tampa Bay and doesn't even get a play in the playoff game. Let's start with this, and then we'll talk about the actual game.
Yeah, no, I agree. That would be really unfortunate. Obviously, they said that they're not sure yet. I really hope he does play just because, like you said, he's worked hard for this team, especially through all the bad years. Now finally getting an opportunity. If not in the first round, hopefully they do beat Washington so he gets an opportunity in the second round.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin showed that they still have 2 elite receivers on this roster. So if the receiving core won't be an issue, although there was a moment like Scotty Miller comes in as the third receiver. He's open on a third down and drops the ball that results in an interception. It was only a 7-point game at the time. That would have at least gotten them a field goal. And so that was, it does hurt to some degree. But let's talk about something that I'm sure you want to talk about. Tom Brady just threw for 399 yards and 4 touchdowns and had an interception that wasn't his fault at 43 years old. He's got 43 total touchdowns this season. Not bad for a washed-up quarterback with a noodle arm.
Yeah, exactly. He's a top 5 MVP candidate. I think he actually jumped Russell Wilson this week. If I did my final MVP ballot, I'd probably do Rodgers 1, Mahomes 2, Allen 3, Henry 4, Brady 5. I think he's been fantastic this year. I think this offense has really started to figure things out in the second half of the schedule. I know the schedule got a lot easier, but I think that was really the time for them to really figure some things out. I think this team's dangerous now. They're moving the football really well. They can throw the ball. They've pretty much, I think they were trying too hard to establish the running game. I still think it's important that they do, but I think earlier in the season they were just trying way too hard to establish it. They've been slinging the football around the last few weeks, and I think it's really paid off. This offense has been really good the last few weeks, and I'm excited to see them in the postseason now. It looked like they might be a one-and-done team, and now they look like they could make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there was a great moment. I think it was like late in the second quarter or maybe in the third quarter when like Ronald Jones had like a 15-yard run, and it's like, oh yeah, we can run like running the ball. Like that's a thing. I forgot about that. Like it is they really the way I think every team should treat running the ball, with the exception of a couple, is running the ball is just to make passing the ball easier. It's never been more true for a team than it is for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Did you see the thing too where Brady threw 3 straight shovel passes to Antonio Brown?
Yes,
and it netted him a $250,000 bonus.
Right. Yes. That was we saw that a lot around the league. There was a bit of that. Emmanuel Sanders had a celebration in the middle of a game after getting one of his bonuses. Those things are they're interesting. It's always a fun little wrinkle in Week 17.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. So where are you at with this team? How do you feel about this team heading into the playoffs and with this Washington matchup and potentially, if things break your way, a rematch with Green Bay in the second round?
I think that this is the best case scenario we could have had going into the playoffs where, we talked about the last 4 games of the schedule after the bye being easy and being games that we're supposed to win, but we won all 4, and that's not what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers typically do. So, and they've looked really good in these. I mean, Brady is playing his best football definitely in a Buccaneers uniform. He's playing his best football in years right now. And if he can continue this, it can be incredible. But I do think one of the issues is we've seen the Buccaneers beat up on bad defenses and struggle against good defenses. And that's the concern I think I have in the playoffs. So there's a lot of concern. I wouldn't be shocked if we lose to Washington on Saturday. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be shocked. Like you said, I wouldn't be shocked if I definitely could see an NFC Championship appearance where they could beat Washington, then potentially looks like they'd probably end up playing Green Bay. There's a chance they'd play the Saints in the divisional round, but the roadmap is definitely there. It's a good situation, but I still feel like the 3 superpowers in the NFC are the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Packers, and the Buccaneers are a 4th team that is clearly, they're not quite, I don't think they're quite up with those 3, but I still think that they're a team that can beat any of those 3, except for maybe the Saints.
Yeah. I mean, the Saints are going to be a tough matchup, but I definitely see an NFC Championship scenario where those 2 teams play because the matchups would just bounce in Tampa Bay's favors. And if Jared Goff isn't playing, I don't see a scenario where a scenario that the Rams beat them. Although, yeah, they play the Seahawks. Sorry. I don't see a scenario where they beat the Seahawks though if Jared Goff doesn't play. But yeah, I mean, I think the matchups can break in their favor, and we'll see because, like we said, the schedule did get a lot easier to end the season. But if this offense keeps moving the ball this well and throwing the ball this much, I could see them beating anybody.
Yeah, and another issue this game, the defense hasn't been great, but another factor was no Devin White. He won't be back. He had COVID, and he won't be back for next week's game either. I believe if it was a Sunday game, he would have, and if it's a Saturday game, he can't. That's what some people said. I think I've heard conflicting reports on that, so I'm not 100% sure. But also, Shaq Barrett wasn't in this one. He hopefully will be back though for the playoffs. So the Washington game might be a bit closer than people realize because Tampa Bay doesn't have all their guys.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think Washington is an interesting matchup for them just because, like I said, Brady doesn't move a whole lot anymore, especially at 43. Not that he did a whole lot at 33, but even less so at 43. And this defensive line can get after a quarterback. So if that front 4 is able to get to him, it's going to be a great game.
Yes, we will talk more about the Buccaneers and the Washington football team on the Wednesday show. Stay tuned for that. Let's move on. So now we got a couple more games that did have NFC East playoff implications, kind of. It was seeding implications. We'll start off with the Saints, who hoped that they could find a way for the 1 seed, but Green Bay won, so they end up here with the 2 seed. New Orleans, they're in a good position. It's not a great position because you don't have the 1 seed, but they were at least able to completely dominate a team that they should beat.
Yeah, I think they kind of needed this game on offense. I think they needed to show themselves that they can, you know, we've talked about this offense being up and down all year. I think they needed a little bit of a performance like this, and then Bridgewater and PJ Walker had a really rough day.
Yes, yes, 5 total interceptions between them.
Yeah, I think that's a big question for Carolina on that side of the ball going forward. What are they going to do with Bridgewater, and what are they going to do at that position? But yeah, I mean the Saints are rolling now, and uh, they might have the most talented roster in the NFC. They do have to go to Lambeau, and I think that's going to be really tough for Drew Brees. But when you have the most talented roster in the NFC, I think that they're, a Super Bowl contender just as much as they were earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm. And also, Ty Montgomery ends up with 100 yards rushing. I mean, the Detroit Lions spent what, like 4 or 5 years without having a 100-yard rusher before Kerryon Johnson finally did it. The Saints just signed Ty Montgomery off the street, and he gets 100 yards. It's not fair.
Yeah, no, it really isn't. So yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is though they got to get these. They gotta hope Kamara comes back okay soon, and Michael Thomas have they announced is he going to play the first game of the playoffs?
I have not seen a report one way or the other yet.
Yeah, I mean, if that's going to be the big thing for this team, if they can get those guys, that means everything. So we'll see, but yeah, I mean they've made it, so that's all that matters. And yeah, they thumped Carolina today. This game was over pretty quickly, honestly.
Yeah. All right. And again, don't spend too long on that. Another team we'll talk about tomorrow. One last game that had playoff implications, and then we'll talk about the ones that didn't briefly before getting into our top 5 and bottom 5. Seahawks and the Niners. The 49ers actually had this game. It seemed like they had it won for a bit. Seattle scored 26 points. 20 of their points came in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, this was an ugly game for a long stretch of it. Both teams didn't really play well offensively. I mean, the defenses were really good. Robert Saleh just showed how good of a coordinator he is and why he's going to be a head coach next year. And, San Francisco had a position. They were up 10 in this game. And then, Seattle just got it together. Costly fumble made it a 10-point game in Seattle's favor, and that was pretty much it. George Kittle made an unreal catch, and it made me reminded myself why we want George Kittle to play every week of the season and not get hurt.
George Kittle is unbelievable. He's one of the best tight end. He reminds me of Gronkowski. He really does, with his ability to receive, and then he's also a monster blocking. He blocks like a tackle does. He's ridiculous. I'm going to say something about Seattle that I never thought I would say week 5 of the season. Yes, their defense is playing well, but should we be worried about their offense?
A little bit. The running game, it played well today, but it doesn't seem like it has any sort of rhythm at times. Russell Wilson has been inconsistent. He was 20 of 36 today in this one, 5 yards per attempt. I would be a little worried at times. It seems like, if you're able to find a way to lock up Metcalf and Lockett, you can have a lot of success against this offense. And I think a lot of teams have started to figure some of that stuff out where they're able to lock up one of those guys and not the other. I know Lockett had a big game in this one, but they were able to take Metcalf out of the equation. And I felt like that changed a lot of this game, and it's changed a lot of the Seahawks offense.
Yeah, good stuff by you, because the first 8 weeks of the season, they scored at least 27 points in every single game. The last 8, they've scored at least 27 points twice. They did it. They scored 28 against the Cardinals and then 40 against the Jets. So, it's a bit concerning, but at the same time, the Seahawks are just weird. They don't like winning games by a lot. They like winning games by one score. And we all know that Russell Wilson, he might not have the best first 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter, he's going to turn it up.
Yeah, he was able to get it done. And, just one more thing on Kittle, too. I forgot to say this. You look at the way these quarterbacks played for San Francisco earlier in the season when you're looking at Beathard and Mullins, like, there's no way these guys are NFL quarterbacks and going to replace Garoppolo. And you just look at Beathard playing with Kittle. It changes everything. But, yeah, Seattle was able to get it done. And like you said, they made plays at the end of the game. It's just crazy that 17 weeks in the season, they haven't put together a performance on both sides of the ball, it feels like, in one game.
Right. if their defense in the last half of the season played like it did in the first half of the season, they would have won every game 90-0.
Yeah. I mean, they really would have. They played that well. So yeah, I mean, we'll see with Seattle. Maybe they start to put this everything together, but it's just like I don't know how much faith I have in this team when it can't put it all together at once and look like a complete football team.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see though, because again, they play LA, who they just beat last week. So I think that they've got to feel good about their chances there. They're definitely a team that again, their defenses all of a sudden look fantastic. So I could absolutely see them going on a run as well. It'll be interesting. Again, another team we'll talk about on Wednesday. So we got 4 games left. That's it for the games of playoff implications. We're going to talk about the ones that didn't for a little bit because we talk about every game. We're, wrap a bow on the regular season. So let's start off with Chargers Chiefs. And I feel like we should be fair before we get too much into this. We didn't exactly watch every single second of these 4 games because we were focused on the games that were important, but we kept an eye on them to some degree. So Chad Henne played. The Chiefs lost. Justin Herbert's really good. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, well, it was crazy because Chad Henne started this game like 9 for 9. Mm-hmm. And I was like, is this really what this game's going to be? Is like all of a sudden we'll get the Mahomes is a system quarterback comments. He cooled off a little bit. He still had a pretty good game overall, though. This game was really kind of all about getting Justin Herbert the Rookie of the Year spot, wasn't it?
I mean, I think he had that locked up weeks ago.
I mean, I still think Justin Jefferson. I would still probably pick Justin Jefferson.
That's fair.
But I think Herbert, just in case they wanted to make sure that he solidified it, they just let him go nuts in this one. Just say, hey, throw it as much as you want. We're going to make sure we win this game and you get a great stat line. And he did that. He looked really good in this one playing against the Chiefs backups.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's incredible. I thought that, again, having Andy Reid sort of helps with the Chad Henne thing. I think that obviously factors in. I guess we'll talk about this for the Chargers. Chargers have won their last 4 straight. It's reminiscent of it's reminiscent to me. They're 7-9, which does not seem like that was what their record is. It reminds me a bit of Adam Gase last year in the Jets, where they weren't very good, but then they won 4 or 5 straight to end the season. And everyone was like, hey, they were 7-9 last year. They'll be better. I feel like Chargers get a new head coach.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have one Chargers fan in my life. He's one of the 12 Chargers fans that exist. And I was asking him about this a couple weeks ago, and he actually was making the argument that Anthony Lynn should get one more year. I completely disagreed with him, but as a Chargers fan, he was arguing this, and he might have managed to save his job here winning these last 4 games. I mean, we'll see what happens, but it might turn into a situation once again where, guys like Dabble, Bieniemy, and Saleh are all taken. Who are you getting to replace Anthony Lynn at this point at the end of the coaching carousel?
Yeah, but how does that – I mean, because you're not going to fire – it's not like you're going to wait until you have a new head coach to fire him. Usually you fire the head coach and then find a new one. So unless they've already, done interviews and figured out they're not going to get any of those guys, you'd think you'd have to fire Anthony Lynn and then try to get them. And then if you don't get any of those guys, then do you just say, hey, Anthony Lynn, want your job back?
Well, I think the issue is Houston, Detroit, and Atlanta are already ahead of all of them,
Mm-hmm.
So they're already ahead of the curve with this. So although they can't formally request interviews, I think yet, they are still kind of ahead of the curve, and that I think gives them an advantage over Los Angeles, where I think they're in a tough situation now after winning these last 4 games and not firing Lynn earlier in the season, to where they now have to play catch up. And with those 3, if those 3 guys are off the table and Urban Meyer's in Jacksonville, which sounds like it's going to happen, I don't think there's a lot of head coaches that I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to hire that guy.
At the same time, though, I mean, if you're Eric Bieniemy, isn't this the perfect situation for you? You have a team that no expectations.
I think this is a great job.
Yeah, I think it's got into jobs that are available. This seems like it's one of the best.
I think it is the best. I think this team has a lot of talent. I think if Derwin James, I think you need to do some sort of exorcism to help make sure Derwin James comes back healthy and stays healthy. I think you need to add a couple pieces on this offensive line, but I think there's so much talent in this team on both sides of the ball. There's a lot of building blocks on this team with Bosa, with Herbert, with a really good receiving core, with James if he's healthy. I think this is a great job. The toughest part about it is the division.
Yeah, I agree. And for the Chiefs, again, I don't know what else to really add because they played their backups. We'll see what they do. Again, I can say I wasn't a fan of them not playing their starters. I think you should play your starters when you have a bye, but they decided to do it, and we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's going to be interesting because Buffalo looked really good. I don't want to make it sound like it's a two-team race, but Baltimore looked really good too. So we'll see what happens with the Chiefs in week 7 or going forward. But they're still the favorites, but there's teams that are creeping up towards them where it seemed like maybe 5 weeks ago with the way Baltimore and Buffalo were playing that it might be a one-team race. But at the same time, those teams are now looking really good, and the Chiefs still have a lot of questions, I feel like, with the way they played and not really putting their foot on throats of a lot of teams.
Right, and part of what I think too is I'm just sort of thinking out loud here for a second. But if the Bills win, the Ravens win, and the Steelers win, which I feel like those are going to be the 3 favored teams. Now you got Baltimore coming into Kansas City. You're going to be rusty, and Baltimore's a team that when they get up, it's hard to get back and to retake that lead. Although Kansas City can come back with the best of them, so we'll see how it works. But yeah,
best case scenario for them is if Cleveland pulls off an upset, isn't it?
Yeah, or just any upset. I think probably best case scenario will be the Colts pulling off an upset, I would say.
Yeah, I just feel like with the way Cleveland is, I feel like they just bushwhacked them.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, we'll talk about it more on our preview show. The Raiders, they exercised their demons this time. In a week 17 game that didn't matter, they converted the 2-point conversion and won the game. What a great turnaround from John Gruden. Clearly improvements being made.
Hey, 8-8 instead of 7-9. It's his first non-losing season of his second Raiders tenure. So he's got that going for him.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is I think they scored that 2-point conversion and there was I want to say there was 20 seconds left.
Yeah, I think 22,
and
something like that.
24 seconds left. And the crazy thing is you're thinking, oh, the Broncos got a shot. This defense is and the defense did give up a couple big plays that put him in a position to win it. Just a weird season for the Raiders comes to an end. This defense wasn't able to get it done for them, which is unfortunate because I would have really liked to see this offense in the playoffs on one of those Saturday games. So frustrating season for the Raiders, but I do think that there are pieces here that they feel confident about. They just got to completely revamp this defense and I think start fresh.
Yeah, and they have pieces on defense too. I think that they just need to figure it out defensively. There was also this an incredible moment when the Broncos are at their own 8-yard line. It's 3rd down and 10, and Jerry Jeudy gets a 90-yard touchdown. It's just the most Raiders thing ever. Also incredible by Jerry Jeudy, but it's just such a Raiders defensive moment.
Yeah, just a weird game overall. The other thing too is Vic Fangio definitely did not leave the best taste in John Elway's mouth heading into the offseason. Not only did they lose, the Raiders go down and score, and when it looks like the play clock's going to run out on that 2-point conversion attempt, he calls a timeout to regroup his team. And it basically just gave the Raiders the win because they were able to reset and run their 2-point conversion play. Just an odd season from him. I still believe in him, and he's another guy I'd bring back for another year. But at the same time, he's not doing himself any favors, man.
Well, he needs to hire someone to just do the game management stuff. He needs to say, you're going to tell me when to call, even tell me when to call timeout, tell me when to go for it. I'm just going to be the guy who's in charge and, work on the defense. And he also needs to hire someone who can be a good offensive coordinator. Fangio's issue right now, which is a big part of being a head coach, I feel like, is getting someone who can run the offense.
So he's a great head coach when someone else runs the offense and someone else manages the timeouts.
He's someone, I know that sounds silly, but there's plenty of guys who part of being a great head coach is I think that, part of what made this is a little bit different, but Bill Belichick, for example, he was this defensive minded guy, and then he has Tom Brady, who can sort of do the offense. And, I don't think that he had a ton of impact on the offense, and he can be the leader in the locker room. Again, I'm not saying Fangio is Bill Belichick, but you don't have to. I think Sean McVay is another great example.
Andy Reid struggled with this for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he struggled. He still struggles with timeouts.
Right. And I was going to say Sean McVay's another example. He's another guy who struggles with game management, and he has other people just basically run the defense. But that's okay. So you know your weaknesses, and you got to hire the right personnel, because Sean McVay's been able to get good defensive coordinators, and so that's the main thing.
Yeah. No, I think both of these teams are interesting going into next season, but I do think they have things they have to address. You can't blame it all. I think both of these teams suffered injury-wise. The Broncos was a lot of preseason stuff, and the Raiders, it seemed like, probably suffered the most from in-season COVID. They didn't have the most COVID opt-outs, but it seemed like every other week they were having COVID issues where guys are out because of it. I can't remember a game where they had their entire offensive line out there, it seemed like. So I do think there are some issues that they have to address on their rosters, but I do think that they were a little snake bitten this year, both teams.
Yeah, let's move on. We'll talk your team. I'm sure you want to. Hey, Cam Newton saved his job. He'll be starting next year.
How crazy is it that they waited for the last game of the season to put this kind of offensive performance? I know it's the Jets. Listen, I know it. But
I think that's partially why.
Just like the simple things like Devin Asiasi going out and running passes, getting 3 targets in this one, and getting a touchdown. We don't have any – we struggled with tight ends for years now, and just seeing that from him this game, whether it's the Jets or not, he's been there all season, and now all of a sudden they're going to run routes for him. Jacoby Myers capped off a great season. I thought the running game was really good in this one. Sony Michel, I thought, might have saved his job because I really like Damian Harris, but once again, he can't stay healthy, so it's going to be interesting. And the Patriots played good football. I think the one thing I learned from this is Sam Darnold will not be the starting quarterback next year for the Jets.
That seems likely. He does. He's not one of those guys though, right? Where it's like he does enough well to make you say like, oh well, there's potential there. But at a certain point, you do kind of have to just pull the plug, especially when you have the number 2 overall pick.
Listen, I think the problem is that you keep looking at he always struggles against the Patriots. I get Belichick's really good at scheming against quarterbacks. He always struggles against the Patriots. But at the same time, the Patriots right now might have the worst secondary of the 3 teams he has to play in his division. He has to beat if you're looking at the Jets right now and you're looking at your quarterback going forward, you need guys who can beat the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Patriots going forward. If Darnold can't beat the Patriots, that's the worst of the 3 teams. He's clearly not the guy. That's not the answer.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why he's not the answer. And again,
Justin Fields also looked really good too. So
right, that helps. That definitely helps. Yeah, I mean, again, this is the game I kind of this is the who cares game for me. You're the Patriots fan, so any final thoughts on it?
No, I think we just about covered everything. Patriots, we'll see what happens going forward. They get the 15th pick. Kind of a weird spot if they want a quarterback or Kyle Pitts or Devontae Smith. They might have to try and move up for one of those guys. Unless they don't trade up. Everyone keeps saying that. They don't trade up. So because I think the problem is the top 2 quarterbacks are definitely going to be gone. I think teams are going to try and trade up for Trey Lance and Zach Wilson at that point. So like I've said all season, if they love Mac Jones, I like Mac Jones. If they love Mac Jones, they might go for him at 15. But it seems like a lot of the guys they really were hoping to get, they might be too good to get one of those guys because I think a lot of them are going to be gone.
Yeah, I think what New England does is tries to get a quarterback free agency or through a trade and then trades back to get a bunch of guys in the 2nd round that were going to go in the 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. This defense has pieces, though, so I feel good about it.
Yeah, and then also they're the Patriots, so they'll get like a bunch of like undrafted guys that turn into like starters for them.
Yeah, as long as they never draft a secondary player again, because we just have the best undrafted rookie secondary players ever. Right. Just don't draft anybody else at cornerback.
Yes. Let's move on. Final game of the week that we're going to talk about. This was, I believe I said this could end up being an incredible game that nobody watches, and I nailed it. Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins had 405 yards on 40 attempts. Stafford 293 yards on 31 attempts. This was a high scoring affair. And Kyle, I know you're very disappointed about this game. We were perfect on our picks. We went 16 for 16, but the one exception was you had the Vikings as the lock of the week, meaning they had to cover a 7-point spread. They had to win by more than 7. They won by 2 because of a last minute kneel down instead of running the ball in for a touchdown.
Yeah, I was very peeved about this because I felt really confident in this lock. And yeah, they got the ball down on the 9-yard line on the last game of the season, the very last game of the season, and decided to kneel the clock out rather than just play football. Very unfortunate to see that because they would have covered. But at the same time, they didn't deserve to cover because there is a lot wrong with this game. I did see some of the highlights with this, just a complete train wreck from the referees. I don't blame refs a whole lot. I think blaming refs is the cheap way out. But at the same time, they had a 4th and goal at the 1. They ran a play-action play. The Lions defender, I forget what number it was and which player, I'm sorry. He read it great, made the play, got Kirk Cousins in the backfield, and they called a roughing the passer, which made absolutely zero sense. So they got 1st and goal at the 1 again, essentially. And then there was another one where Marvin Jones had a touchdown catch that they called back because they said it was a drop that didn't look like a drop at all. There's just no situation where it looked like it hit the ground. And they called it back, and they had to rerun it back. I think they ended up scoring, but it took another 2 minutes off the clock. So I think Lions feel a little snake bitten, but at the same time, who cares?
Right, yeah, it is a who cares. I mean, clearly this was the 16th best crew probably working this one. I don't know what the Lions did to piss off.
I think the Lions always have the 16th worst crew.
Yes, even in weeks when there's not 16 games. I don't know what they did to piss off the refs. I don't know what happened. That roughing the passer is ridiculous. Roughing the passers like that make me say just put flags on quarterbacks because they drive me crazy. Like if we can't tackle the quarterback, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, and he makes a great play. He completely, reads the play action and gets after it. I hate when, there are some that are definitely warranted, and I agree. And I think the problem is that I think the problem that's become is the NFL they try to solve complications with rules with adding more rules to it. And they just create more controversy because the new rules are tough to interpret. And I think that's essentially what's happened with roughing the passer. Because they tried to solve the low problem with eliminating hits below the waist. They tried to solve the high hit problems by eliminating shots at the helmet, which I both completely agree with. But now you have a situation where you can't tell what's a high hit, you can't tell what's a low hit, and you can't tell what's a clean hit, and you can't tell what's a hit leading with the helmet compared to leading with the shoulder. So we're in a situation where none of it makes sense, and they're just throwing the flag, it seems like, blindly.
Yeah, and it's also infuriating when it's a play like that where if it was if it was a running back who got hit like that, no chance in hell that's getting flagged.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just a tough situation. I don't know how they fix it going forward, but I do think that is something that they'll eventually need to address because I don't think anyone's on the same page with it.
Yes. Also, one fact that Luke G's field review tweeted out, someone he's been on this podcast before, he tweeted out the Detroit Lions have now set their franchise record for most points in a single season, surpassing the team that went 0-16. The defensive guru Matt Patricia, one final send off before the season ends.
Just incredible stuff there.
Yeah, and I know it's we're at the point NFL rules have changed, but still pretty crazy. All right, so that's it. We have our top 5 and bottom 5, but for talking about games, regular season games, there's none more until next year. We have our top 5 and bottom 5 though, so those are always fun. I'll do my top 5, and then we'll have you do your bottom 5. My top 5, I'm starting off number 5. I have Jalen Hurts, not because of how he played, but because of how Nate Sudfeld played immediately after, making everyone feel a lot better about Jalen Hurts' lackluster performance because Sudfeld did not do too well. Number 4, Tom Brady, 43 total touchdowns at 43 years old. Absolutely absurd. The way he's been able to beat up on bad defenses, sort of pad the stats a little bit. He gets here at number 4. Number 3, I have Cleveland Browns fans. Cleveland Browns fans waited so long for a playoff appearance. They get it. and they'll get to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, that's kind of been sort of one of the bullies for them these past few years. So playing them again, we'll see, they get a chance to sort of beat up their bully. Number 2, I have Jets fans. Jets fans are number 2 because the main reason being Adam Gase got fired. On top of this, Justin Fields looked really good. So 2 good things for Jets fans this weekend. And finally, I'm going to go with a 2-for-1, Alex Smith and Ron Rivera. We talked about it a bit, but, Smith coming back from his injury, Ron Rivera battling cancer, both of them making the playoffs. Say what you want about it being a weak division, but still a very, very cool story for them. That's my top 5. Hurts, Brady, Browns fans, Jets fans, Alex Smith, and Ron Rivera.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good top 5 list. I agree with everything you said. Brady's the GOAT. Nobody forget it.
Patriots fans won't let us forget it, Kyle.
No, exactly. We can't. It's our job.
Okay.
The Smith and Rivera story is definitely the best story of the season. Both of those guys being able to manage this season and come back, I thought has been great. So yeah, I think it's a great story overall. Good top 5. I have a bonus top 5 for you because I have to have an obscure soccer reference in every one of our shows.
Okay.
So our additional top 5 things we like.
5 or just an additional point?
Just an additional point. Cristiano Ronaldo set the new soccer world record with 758 professional goals, passing Pele for second most all time. Sorry, he got second most all time, passing Pele with 758 professional goals. He is behind Slavia Prague legend Joseph Bicon, who may have 759 total goals or 805 total goals, depending on who you ask, because there's a lot of questions on what was a legitimate game back then in 1930 to 1950. But he scored 805 total goals in 530 games. Ronaldo's got some work to do to catch him, but shout out to Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yes, massive shout out. I that just missed my cut. That's why I didn't have it on there. Okay, we'll get on to your. All right, I wrote top 5. I got to edit that. It's your bottom 5. I'm horrible show by me, but you go ahead and give your bottom 5.
So my bottom 5, my number 5 is Kirby Smart. He's the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs in college football. He willingly passed up on Trevor Lawrence because he wanted to recruit Justin Fields. He recruited Justin Fields, decided not to start Justin Fields to play Jake Fromm. Justin Fields transfers to Ohio State. In back-to-back playoff appearances, Justin Fields plays Trevor Lawrence in the college football playoff, while Georgia's not in the college football playoff, and both are going to be the top 2 picks in the NFL draft now. So Kirby Smart is my number 5. Number 4, we talked about it, the Vikings and Lions refs. The roughing the passer call was completely egregious. I didn't see any situation where Marvin Jones dropped that ball or any angle where the ball looked incomplete. That was terrible. Number 3, COVID-19. I think everybody hates COVID-19, but it's in my bottom 5 this week because we're in a situation now where Alvin Kamara, Devin White, Denzel Ward, all of these guys have so much questions. I think the NFL is at a really bad spot right now with COVID. I don't think anybody cares because we're entering the playoffs, but there's a lot of guys out right now, and it really stinks that we're not going to see them in the postseason, potentially. Hopefully we get some of these guys back, but it's up in the air whether these guys are going to play. Number 2, I have pro sports playoff formats because once again, we're seeing it where the Bears and the Balls are making the playoffs and the Miami Dolphins are not. I know we disagree on this, but I am right. The Dolphins deserve to make the playoffs. And number 1, once again, for the second week in a row, I make my own list. I am number 1 on the bad things I don't like. I planned a Las Vegas trip entering the wild card playoff rounds where I'm going to Vegas next weekend. And that just means I'm going to lose all my money gambling on these playoff games because I know I'm going to bet I'm going to bet the favorite Saturday night. I'm going to bet the Seahawks, the Bills, and the Buccaneers, and I know that the football team's going to upset them, and I just lose money. So
okay, I like how you're already determined that you're going to bet things that are going to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's how it works. Something ends up losing, so I blame myself for this. I hate myself, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah. Well, why do you care so much if the Miami Dolphins miss the playoffs?
I have said this so many times. I want to see the best teams compete for a championship.
They did. They had a shot.
Yeah, and if we just did the best 14 teams make the playoffs, they would still have a shot.
Okay, but sure, but I don't know. Things like this drive me crazy. I want to see an interesting regular season and an interesting playoffs, and if that means that the 14th best team, or maybe the 13th or 12th best team, doesn't make it, because then instead the 16th best team makes it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I would rather see the Dolphins.
Okay, all right. Well, you can write an angry worded letter to Roger Goodell, but in the meantime,
I will.
But in the meantime, that is our show. Everyone, thank you for watching, being with us for the regular season. We'll be back for the playoffs. I'm not sure exactly. I think probably as of right now, the time would still be Sunday at midnight, but we might change that. So we'll tweet it out, and we'll also have it on. We'll say it on next week's on the Wednesday show, which will be at 9. And follow us on Twitter so you can figure out when exactly we will be doing everything. Link is in the description below, so definitely check that out. And again, thanks to everyone for watching. Kyle, any final thoughts before we log out?
Looking forward to the playoffs. It's been a fun regular season. The chat's been awesome all season long, and I can't wait to get ready for the playoffs. And we'll see you next weekend, or we'll see you Wednesday.
Yeah, see you Wednesday. Again, appreciate it, everyone. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.